Hey guys, this is Dave with Gazaudio. I hope everyone has had a wonderful holiday and happy new year so far. I know I haven't been on much, but with the holidays, it's just been a little chaotic, and I've also been trying to get caught up on my other channel. But I'm back now, and I have something pretty special because I've finally gotten my hands on the Aune S17 Pro desktop headphone amp / preamp. So of course, we'll go over what's included in the box. We'll talk about the specifications and features. Then I'll do a complete sound breakdown, all hopefully in 10 minutes or less. We have a lot to talk about, so let's get started. Included in the box is the S17 Pro, of course. It also includes a nice remote, a power cord, and a 6.35 adapter. As for the price, specifications, and features, the S17 Pro comes in at $699 and functions both as a headphone amp and preamp. On the front, we have a 4-pin XLR balanced output, a 6.35 millimeter single-ended output, then a 4.4 millimeter balanced output. We also have a color display, then an R2R volume knob, not a potentiometer. And if you long press the volume knob, you can switch between high and low gain. And then if you double click it, you can switch between low current mode, which gives you 50 milliamps of current, and then high current mode, which gives you 100 milliamps of current. And we'll circle back to that in a moment. On the back, there is a set of fully balanced analog XLR outputs, a set of balanced analog XLR outputs, and then there's also a set of RCA inputs and outputs as well. And again, this does function as a preamp, so you can adjust the output levels with the volume knob. So that covers the outside, but what about the inside? Well, first we have a linear power supply, which means clean and stable power. Then on the amplification side, we have twin JFET transistors, which run in Class A mode. And then, as I had mentioned earlier, the volume knob is not a potentiometer, but instead uses an R2R network. And that means both channels can maintain perfect balance. As far as features, the S17 Pro has pure Class A mode, and by default, the S17 Pro sets the current output to 50 milliamps. But again, if you double press the volume knob, then it will switch to pure Class A mode and then kick the current up to 100 milliamps. But you do need to be aware that will also increase the temperature quite a bit of the unit, and it actually gets pretty hot. But what's nice is it also has built-in auto overheat detection. So if the temperature reaches 69 degrees Celsius, it will automatically switch the output current back to 50 milliamps. The highest temperature it ever reached with me was 64, and that was after running it for about 5 hours. But here's where things get pretty interesting. The S17 Pro is very powerful. Out of the balanced output, it will give you an impressive 7 watts of power with a 32 ohm load and almost 1 watt with a 300 ohm load. And out of the single-ended output, it'll give you 2 watts of power at 32 ohms and then 288 milliwatts at 300 ohms. So it's powerful enough to drive pretty much any full-size headphone that you can throw at it, but also delicate enough to work with IEMs as well. And I did test it extensively with both, which brings us to the next segment of the review, sound. Okay, let's talk about the sound of the S17 Pro, but first I want to quickly go over the gear I paired it with. So I tested it with several headphones and IEMs, including the LCD3 2022 version, the Aria Stealth, but also some mid-tier stuff like the Sivga SV023 and Zeus Elite. And then I also tested it with a bunch of IEMs as well, including the C-Audio Hakuya, Monarch MK2, Arc Pakal Michael, the 2020 version of the Andromeda to test noise levels, and then many others. We'll talk about the sound in 50 milliamp mode first, because that's the stock mode. So the general presentation in 50 milliamp mode is linear, and it doesn't really lean warm or cold. It sits comfortably right in the middle. And at first I did notice just a hint of edginess in the highs, but as the amp started to warm up, that completely went away. And I would say that was after about 30 minutes to an hour later. But the first thing that stood out to me was just how detailed the S17 Pro was. And I'm hesitant to declare it in-game levels, but I can say easily that this should satisfy most detail chasers. And it definitely comes very close to some of the best detail I've ever heard. But even more impressive was simply how tonally correct and natural everything sounded. And it got even better in 100 milliamp mode, but I'll talk about that in a minute. But nearly every instrument, from delicate stringed instruments, pianos, acoustic, and electric guitars, all the way to percussive instruments and drums of every type, the S17 Pro reproduced them almost as naturally as I've ever heard outside of the real thing. Now, as far as dynamics, it is excellent. It gave me all the slam and impact I could ever want out of an amplifier. Again, it's simply excellent. But beyond that, the general bass quality is just superb. It was linear, but lush, full, and it just simply sounded accurate. Now, as I always say, an amp or a DAC's technical performance will only be as good as your IEMs and headphones. And I'm sure there are lots of reviewers, or even many of you watching right now, that have maybe end game level stuff that is much more expensive than mine. But for me personally, I do feel that my sources, IEMs, and headphones can perform at the levels needed to really test the capabilities of most of the desktop devices properly that come across my desk. And I will tell you right now that the S17 Pro gave me some of the best technical performance I've ever heard. So if your headphones or IEMs have a wide soundstage and you're listening to a track with a wide soundstage, this will reproduce all of that. It will also give you excellent forward depth, instrument separation, and proper imaging. And when I say proper, I mean really good focus, density, and weight of the instrument or vocal. It simply accurately reproduces the sound field of the recording. Again, some of the best technical performance I've ever heard. Not the best, but definitely some of the best. And that's just in 50 milliamp mode. Now again, if you double press the volume knob, it will switch over to 100 milliamp mode. And when it does, you're going to see its temperature start to rise on the display. And if you touch it, you'll definitely also feel it start to increase as well. So at this point, you are in pure Class A mode, and there is an actual audible change that occurs in the sound. And there were two things that stood out to me. First was its tonality. Instruments and vocals started to become just a little more lush and rich. So while it maintained a fairly linear presentation, it did start to lean just a little bit warm. So instruments like saxophones, cellos, basically any instruments that are supposed to have a full-bodied sound begin to sound slightly weightier and even fuller bodied than in 50 milliamp mode. Now, in addition, I also noticed a slight increase in dynamics as well. So even though kicks, drums, floor toms, bass plucks already had very good impact and physicality in 50 milliamp mode, when you switch over to 100 milliamp mode, suddenly that physicality and impact is just kicked up a notch, and those instruments become just a little more tangible, a little more real. So you have richer tonality, increased dynamics, but then as I started testing recordings that had a wider soundstage like Macy Gray's Strip or Hoff Ensemble's Innocence, I also noticed that the sound field seemed to get just a little larger, a little wider, which was kind of nuts because it already seemed more than wide enough for me in 50 milliamp mode. And it didn't seem to sacrifice imaging or instrument focus at all. So basically, you get all of the detail and naturalness found in 50 milliamp mode present in 100 milliamp mode, plus added richness, increased dynamics, and even better technical performance. And then finally, of course, I tested for background noise using my 2020 Andromedas, and it's basically noiseless, not only in low gain, but even in high gain. So usually this is where I share where I feel a device stands in terms of the competition. And honestly, I can't think of any amps under $1,000 that I've heard that have impressed me the way the S17 Pro has. And I will just tell you right now that as of this moment, the S17 Pro is probably going to be my reference amp for headphones until something better comes along. And I can even use it for IAMs, although I will probably also keep using my M11 Plus simply because I'm not tied to my desk, and sometimes I do like to sit in my living room or by the fireplace when I do my testing. So I guess if I had to sum up my experience with the S17 Pro, I would say that it simply exceeded my expectations and it over-delivered virtually on every level. So that concludes my review of the Aune S17 Pro. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch. If you like our content, please take a second and hit that subscribe button. Also, if you would please like this video, please share this video. I hope you guys have an awesome day.